The wind had teeth. It did not just blow, it bit. It tore at the high peaks of the Laramie Range, howling down through the granite canyons and scouring the wide basins with ice. This was a land that did not want people, not in the heart of a winter this sharp. The year was 1878, a time when the West was still a raw, unfinished thing, a place of grand beauty and sudden, brutal endings. The mountains were knives against the sky. The flatlands were a frozen ocean. The small towns, huddled in the riverbeds, were just tiny sparks of light in a vast, cold darkness. Snow lay over everything, a thick white blanket that covered the sagebrush, choked the passes, and buried the trails. It was beautiful, and it was a promise of death. Jenna Cross was running from both. She was a dark shape against the endless white. Her breath ripped from her lungs in white clouds, instantly torn away by the wind. Each step was a fresh agony. Her left leg was a column of fire, lower down, below the knee. There was a different feeling, a deep, sickening numbness that was almost worse than the fire. She knew what it meant. The cold was getting in. The cloth of her trousers was stiff, frozen dark with blood that had leaked from the gash on her calf. It was a long, ugly cut, payback for her own desperate knife work 2 days ago. Or was it 3? Time had become a blur of pain and cold and the constant, crushing weight of the sky. She fell. It was not a stumble this time. Her legs simply gave out, refusing to hold her. She pitched forward into a drift, the snow swallowing her to the hip. It was soft, powdery, and a terrible, shocking cold. The impact sent a jolt of pain up her spine. For a moment, she just lay there, gasping. The will to get up was a tiny, guttering flame deep inside her. It was so much easier to stay, so much simpler to close her eyes and let the white world take her. A face swam up in her memory, the face of Silas, her husband, Silas, with his easy smile and his clever hands, the man who had promised her a new life in the West, away from the judgmental eyes of her Eastern family. He had built their small house with those hands. He had held her with them, and then he had used them to sign the papers that gave everything away. Everything she had. Everything she was. He had sold her out to men who saw people as property, as coins to be stacked. The betrayal was a wound far deeper than the one in her leg. It was a rot in her soul. That was why she was running. She was not just running from the men Silas had sold her to. She was running from the memory of his smile. She pushed herself up. The effort cost her almost everything. She used her hands, her one good leg. She clawed her way out of the drift, standing again on 2 feet. But her feet were gone. She could not feel them. Her boots were worn. The leather cracked and soaked through. She knew her toes were frozen. She knew it the way she knew the sun was hidden behind the gray clouds. It was a fact, another way to carry. She had been smart at first. She had followed the ridges, staying off the main trails. She had covered her tracks where she could. But the man who cut her, he was smart too. He was a tracker. He had followed the smallest signs, a broken twig, a disturbed pebble under the snow. And then, after she wounded him, he had the blood trail, a bright red line pointing right to her. She had to keep moving. She forced the good leg forward. She dragged the bad one. The world was nothing but white and gray and the black trunks of lodgepole pines. The silence was immense, broken only by her own ragged breathing and the scream of the wind in the high rocks. She was alone, utterly, terribly alone. The mountains watched her. They were vast, impassive judges, waiting for her to fail. She felt small, insignificant. All her anger, her grief, her desperate fight for life, it was nothing to this place, a speck of dust in a blizzard. She lost track of time. She was just a machine of forward motion. Step, drag, breathe. Step, drag, breathe. The pain was a constant companion, a dull drumbeat behind the sharp sting of the cold. She was thirsty. Her throat was raw. She scooped a handful of snow and pushed it into her mouth. It was not water. It was just more cold. It burned her tongue and did not ease the thirst. She thought she saw smoke, a thin gray spiral rising from a line of trees far below her. Tucked into a crease in the hills, it could be them, her hunters. They would have a fire. They would be warm. They would be drinking hot coffee and planning how to catch her. The thought sent a new, weaker jolt of fear through her. Or it could be salvation, a trapper, a miner, someone who was not them. But she could not take the risk. And besides, the smoke was miles away, miles downhill through drifts and rocks. She would never make it. She kept to the high ground. The wind was worse here, but the snow was shallower, scoured away in patches. It exposed the frozen, iron-hard ground. She stumbled on, her vision starting to blur at the edges. The white landscape was swimming. The trees seemed to lean in, their dark branches like grasping arms. She shook her head, trying to clear it. She was getting lightheaded. The blood loss, the cold, the hunger. She had not eaten in 2 days. She fell again. This time, she landed hard on her side. Her head struck a half-buried rock. A flash of white light exploded behind her eyes, brighter than the snow. Then, darkness. She lay still. The wind pulled at her coat, the one that had belonged to her father. It was too big for her, but it was thick wool. It was the only thing that had kept her alive this long. Now, it felt like a lead blanket, pinning her to the earth. She drifted. She was not in the snow. She was in her mother's kitchen. Long ago, there was the smell of baking bread. It was warm, so warm. Her mother was humming. Jenna smiled in the dream. It was safe here. She could rest. A sound pulled her back. A sharp crack, a branch breaking. Her eyes snapped open. The world was a painful, blurry white. She was freezing. Her cheek was stuck to the icy crust of the snow. She tried to move, but her limbs were heavy, disobedient. A shadow fell over her. She blinked, trying to focus. It was a man. He was standing over her, silent as the trees. He was not one of them. He was not Silas. He was not the man with the knife. This man was different. He was tall, broad. He wore furs, a wolf pelt. Its head still attached, was draped over his shoulders as a hood. His face was hard, weathered by seasons of this very wind. His skin was the color of copper. His hair was long and black, not hidden by a hat. He was an Indian. Jenna's heart gave a single, painful lurch. Fear. It was a cold, reflexive thing, born of stories told around the pot-bellied stove in the general store. Stories of raids, of cruelty. But this fear was thin. She was too far gone for real terror. She was just a dying animal, and here was a predator. He knelt beside her. He moved with a liquid grace, no wasted motion. He did not speak. His eyes, dark and deep, scanned her. They took in the torn trousers, the frozen blood, the pale, waxy color of her skin. He looked at her face, her chapped lips, the ice frozen in her eyelashes. He seemed to be reading her, reading the whole story of her flight and her failure. He reached out a gloved hand. Jenna flinched, a tiny, useless movement. He ignored it. He pressed his fingers against the side of her neck, just under her jaw. He was feeling for a pulse. His touch was not rough, it was just certain. He held his fingers there for a long moment. Jenna watched his face. It was impossible to read. It was as impassive as the granite cliffs around them. He had found her. He was Dante Storm. Though she did not know his name, he was a man who had lost his own people, his own family, to a different kind of storm. A storm of men with guns and paper treaties that meant nothing. He had made the mountains his refuge, his fortress of solitude. He hunted. He lived. He remembered. He wanted nothing from the white world that had taken everything from him. He had been tracking a snow leopard, a ghost of the high rocks. When he cut her trail, the clumsy, dragging steps, the dark spots on the snow, he had followed. expecting to find a wounded deer. He found this, a woman, a white woman. Every part of his history, every scar on his heart, told him to walk away. She was not his problem. She was part of the world that had burned his... But she was dying, and she had been fighting. He could see it, the set of her jaw. Even in unconsciousness, the knife still clutched in her frozen hand, the one tucked inside her coat. He recognized the look. He had seen it in a trapped wolf, a refusal to surrender, even when the trap had already won. He made his decision. It was not a choice. Really, it was just what he had to do. The mountains had their own laws. You did not let a thing die if you could stop it, not even an enemy. And he was not sure she was an enemy. She was just wreckage. He slid his arms under her, one arm beneath her back, the other beneath her knees. He stood, lifting her. She weighed almost nothing, a bundle of wet wool and cold bones. The movement broke her from her stupor. A small sound, a pained sigh, escaped her lips. Her eyes opened, hazy and unfocused. She was looking up at him. She was pressed against his chest. The furs he wore were thick and surprisingly warm. They smelled of wood smoke and pine and clean animal musk. It was a smell of life, of survival. She was too weak to struggle, too cold to think. She only knew that she was no longer lying in the snow. She was being carried. Dante Storm adjusted her weight in his arms and turned. He did not look back at the trail she had made. He began to walk, his steps sure and even in the deep snow. He knew exactly where he was going. He was taking her to his cabin, the place she had seen the smoke. He moved with a steady, rhythmic pace, carrying this strange, broken woman away from the death that was reaching for her, and toward a life she could not possibly have imagined. Jenna Cross closed her eyes. The pain was still there, but the fear was fading. She was being carried. For now, it was enough. Warmth woke her. It was the first thing she registered, a deep, penetrating warmth that seemed to be pulling her up from a great, dark depth. The second thing was the absence of wind. The world was no longer screaming. It was quiet. Her eyes opened. They were sticky, her lashes crusted. The light was dim, golden. She was looking at a ceiling made of rough logs, chinked with mud and grass. She was inside. She was lying on something soft. A bed, not a real bed, but a frame built against a wall, piled high with thick buffalo robes and wolf pelts. The fur was soft against her cheek. She was covered by a heavy blanket, woven with geometric patterns in red and black. She turned her head. The movement sent a dull throb through her skull. She was in a small cabin, a single room. A fire snapped and hissed in a stone hearth, the source of the golden light and the beautiful, beautiful heat. The air smelled of smoke and something else, something savory, meat. A man sat on a low stool by the fire. It was him, the Indian from the snow. Jenna's body went rigid. The fear, which had been frozen into a dull ache, came back sharp and hot. She tried to sit up, but a bolt of agony shot up her left leg. She cried out, a small, strangled sound. The man turned his head. He did not jump. He moved with that same deliberate calm. He looked at her. His face was unreadable in the firelight. He stood, and she saw how tall he truly was. He filled the small space. She scrambled backward on the bed, her hands searching for her knife. It was gone. Her coat was gone. Her boots were gone. She was wearing only her long underwear and her wool trousers, and her left trouser leg was cut away from the knee down. Her leg. She looked down. Her calf was wrapped in a clean, pale bandage. Not cloth, but some kind of soft, treated hide. It was bound neatly. Beside the bed, on the floor, was a wooden bowl containing a dark, wet mash of leaves. He had touched her. He had tended her wound. The intimacy of the thought was a new kind of shock. She pulled the heavy blanket up to her chin, a useless fortress. He walked toward her. Jenna pressed herself against the log wall. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She was trapped. She had run from Silas his men only to be captured by a savage. The stories she had heard all her life spun through her mind. They were not kind stories. He stopped a few feet from the bed. He was not holding a weapon. He held a wooden cup. Steam rose from it. He held it out to her. Jenna stared at the cup, then at his face. She did not take it. She shook her head, a small, jerky motion. He did not move. He just stood there, offering the cup. His patience was unnerving. It was not the patience of a kind man. It was the patience of the mountains. It would wait forever. He said nothing. Finally, his arm lowered. He placed the cup on the floor beside the bed, next to the bowl of poultice. He turned and walked back to the fire. He picked up a spoon and stirred whatever was in the black pot hanging over the flames. Jenna watched him. Her fear was still there, but it was being crowded by confusion. He was not threatening her. He was not tied her up. He had saved her. He had bandaged her wound. He had given her a warm place to be, but he was still what he was, an Indian, and she was a white woman, alone. The two things did not mix. They were oil and water. They were fire and powder. Her leg throbbed. The fire felt good on her skin. The smell from the pot was making her stomach cramp with a hunger so sharp it was almost a pain. She looked at the cup on the floor. It was probably broth. She was so thirsty. Her lips were cracked. She waited until his back was turned. Her arm snaked out from under the blanket. Her fingers touched the warm wood of the cup. She grabbed it and brought it back to her shelter. She sedante'd at the broth. It was hot, rich, and salty. It tasted of rabbit and wild herbs. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. She drank it all, too quickly. The hot liquid hit her stomach and spread warmth through her entire body. She felt a little strength return. She looked at the man again. He had not turned. He knew she had taken it. He had known she would. The thought made her feel small. He spoke. His voice was low, deep. It startled her. He did not look at her. He spoke to the fire. He told her his name was Dante. He said she was safe here. He said there was a blizzard coming from the north. They would have to stay until it passed. Jenna said nothing. She did not know what to say. Thank you seemed wrong. Asking questions seemed dangerous. So she stayed silent, pulling her knees up to her chest. A small, watchful creature in a warm burrow. Dante felt her fear. It was a sharp, sour smell in the small cabin, cutting through the scent of wood smoke and stew. It angered him, this automatic terror. It was the fear his people had seen in the eyes of the whites for years, the fear that came just before the bullets. He had saved her life. He had used his good medicine, the ground willow bark and comfrey root, on her leg. He had given her his own bed, and she looked at him as if he were a wolf about to tear her throat out. He sighed, a sound lost in the crackle of the fire. He was not angry at her. Not really. He was angry at the world that had made her this way. He had seen her trail. He had seen the blood. He knew she was running, and running hard. He knew what white men did to their own. He had seen their wreckage before. He felt a familiar, weary sadness. He had lost his wife, his son, to a raid by white soldiers, an act of riper non assisal for something his band had not even done. That loss had hollowed him out. He had come to these mountains to be alone, to live a life that made sense, a life of hunting, of snow, of silence, and now this. The world had thrown a piece of its broken self into his solitude. He felt a pull of responsibility. He did not want it, but it was there. She was like a wounded bird. He could not just leave her for the hawks. 2 days passed. The blizzard came as Dante had predicted. A wall of white fell from the sky, and the wind howled like a legion of ghosts. The world outside the cabin vanished. They were suspended in a gray, roaring void. Jenna stayed in the bed. She drank the broth he gave her. She ate the thick, savory stew he spooned into a bowl for her. He would place the food on the floor and walk away, giving her space. He took his own food by the fire. He barely spoke. He would leave for short periods, vanishing into the white storm, and return with firewood or a brace of snowshoe hares. He would sit for hours, mending his snowshoes or sharpening his knives. His hands were large, but they were precise and careful. Jenna watched him. Her fear began to lessen. It was replaced by a deep, weary caution. He had not harmed her. He had fed her. He had kept her warm. He had saved her leg. She could feel the wound healing. The fire was gone, replaced by a dull, healthy ache. But the mistrust was still there. It was a bedrock part of her. Silas had taught her that. The man who smiled at you was the man with the knife. This man did not smile, but he was still a man. And he was an Indian. She could not forget that. On the third day, the blizzard broke. The world outside was silent, buried, and blindingly bright. Sunlight on the fresh snow was painful to look at. Dante stood and pulled on his thick fur cloak. He picked up his rifle. He looked at her. He told her the men who were hunting her were still out there. The snow had stopped them, but it would not stop them for long. He had seen their camp before he found her. 3 men. They were hard men. They would not give up. Jenna's blood went cold. 3 of them. She had only seen 2. The one she cut, Eli, and another, a third man. Dante told her they could not stay. The smoke from the cabin chimney was a signal. They would find this place. They had to leave. He asked her if she could walk. Jenna swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her bare feet touched the cold wood floor. She shivered. She stood up, using the wall for support. Her good leg was fine. Her wounded leg, she put weight on it. It held. It hurt, but it held. The bandage was secure. She nodded. She could walk. Slowly. He gave her back her coat. It was dry. He had set it by the fire. And her boots. They were also dry. And the leather was softer. He had rubbed grease into them. She pulled them on. It was a painful process. Her feet were swollen and tender. But she knew none of her toes had been lost. He had saved them. Dante packed supplies, dried meat, a pouch of ground corn, his blanket roll. He gave her a pair of his own moccasins, filled with dry grass, to wear inside her boots. He tied snowshoes to his pack. He looked at her. He told her it would be slow, but they had to move. They stepped outside. The cold was a physical blow. The air was clean and sharp. It burned her lungs. The world was a painful, beautiful white. Jenna squinted against the glare. They began to walk. Dante went first, breaking the trail. Jenna followed in his footsteps. It was grueling work. Every step was a fresh effort. Her leg ached. Her lungs burned. But she did not complain. She just watched the broad, fur-covered back of the man in front of her and put one foot after another. They moved for hours, climbing out of the small draw where the cabin was hidden, and up onto a wooded ridge. Dante moved with an easy, ground-eating stride. Jenna struggled. He stopped often, waiting for her. He did not rush her, but she could feel the urgency. They were in a thick stand of pine, the branches heavy with snow, when he suddenly stopped. He did not turn. He just froze. He held up one hand. Jenna stopped too. She listened. She heard nothing, only the drip of melting snow from a branch. Then she heard it, a man's voice, calling out, far below them. It was not Eli. It was the other man. He was calling her name. Dante turned. His face was a hard mask. He pushed her, not roughly, but with force. He pointed. He told her to go, to keep moving up the ridge. Do not stop. Jenna's old fear came back, choking her. She wanted to run, but her leg, she could not run. A shot cracked through the silent woods. The sound was flat and ugly. A piece of bark exploded from a tree just to her left. They had been seen. Dante grabbed her arm. He pulled her forward, half dragging her. They were running. Jenna stumbled. She fell. Her wounded legs screamed. Another shot. This one kicked up snow just behind them. Dante hauled her to her feet. He shoved her behind a massive granite boulder. He told her to stay down. Jenna huddled against the cold rock, breathing in gasps of terror. She saw them. 2 men moving through the trees below. They were wearing heavy coats. They had rifles. One was Eli. She recognized his hat. His arm was in a sling. The other was a big, bearded man. They were moving from tree to tree, coming up the hill. Dante unslung his rifle. He laid it on the rock. He was calm. His movements were fluid. He checked his load. He was waiting. He was a hunter. Eli shouted. He told her it was no use. Silas wanted his property back. He said the Indian could not save her. He told her to come out, and he would only hurt the savage. Jenna closed her eyes. Silas. His property. That was what she was. A rifle cracked. It was Dante. The sound was deafening. Right next to her ear. The big bearded man below cried out. He staggered. He did not fall. He scrambled behind a tree. Eli fired back. His shot sparked off the rock, sending chips of granite flying. Jenna screamed. Dante glanced at her. His eyes were not cold now. They were alive, burning with a fire she had not seen. He was no longer a quiet, sad man. He was a warrior. He was focused. He was protecting her. He reloaded. It was a fast, practiced motion. He looked at her. He asked her if she could shoot. Jenna stared at him. She shook her head. She had never. Eli's voice came again. He was closer. He was mocking her. He asked if she was hiding behind her new man. Dante looked back at the woods. He looked at Jenna. He needed her. He could not fight 2 men and protect her at the same time. He reached into his belt and pulled out a pistol, a Navy revolver. It was heavy. He put it in her hand. The metal was cold. He pointed to the side of the rock. He told her to watch that side. If a man came, she was to pull the hammer and pull the trigger. He did not ask her. He told her. His voice was hard. Jenna looked at the pistol. It felt alien in her hand. It was heavy. She was shaking. She could not do this. Dante touched her chin. He made her look at him. His dark eyes held hers. He told her she had to live. She had to fight. Jenna looked from his face to the trees below. She heard Eli moving. He was trying to get around to their side. She saw the blood on his sling, the wound she had given him. He would not be kind. She remembered the betrayal. She remembered the cold. She remembered the pain. Her hand tightened on the grip of the pistol. She was not property. She was a person, and she would not be dragged back. She looked at Dante. She nodded. Just once. A small, sharp movement. A new understanding passed between them. It was not trust. Not yet. It was something more basic. They were 2 people, pressed against a rock, and the world was trying to kill them. They would have to stop it together. She turned, pointing the heavy pistol toward the trees. She was still terrified, but for the first time in a very long time, she was not alone. The world exploded. The heavy pistol leaped in Jenna's hand, a solid, brutal kick that slammed her wrist against the rock. The noise was a physical thing, a punch in the ears that left a high, thin ringing. She had closed her eyes. When she opened them, smoke, white and acrid, hung in the cold air. Below, through the trees, she saw him, Eli. He was not running at her. He was on the ground, rolling, clutching his shoulder. Her shot. It had hit him. He had been exposed, out from behind his tree, making his run. Then the other sound, the sharp, flat crack of Dante's rifle, right beside her. It was an answer to her own chaotic thunder. It was precise, measured. Eli stopped rolling. He just lay still in the snow, a dark shape that did not move again. A terrible, hollow silence fell over the woods. Jenna stared at the pistol in her hand. It was smoking. She had done that. She had shot him. The reality of it rose in her throat, hot and sour. She let the gun fall from her numb fingers. It landed with a soft thud in the snow. "He is gone." Dante's voice, it was low, calm. She turned to look at him. He was already reloading his rifle, his eyes scanning the trees below. He was watching the other one, the big, bearded man. They heard him, a crash. He was running, not toward them, but away, downhill, scrambling through the drifts. Abel, he was wounded, and now he was alone. He wanted no more of this. Dante watched him go. He did not fire again. He let him run. Jenna was shaking, a violent, uncontrollable shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. Her teeth chattered. She had just seen a man die. She had helped. Dante stood up. He slung his rifle. He looked at her, huddled against the rock. Her face was a white, bloodless mask. He did not say, "Good job." He did not say, "Thank you." He grabbed her by the arm and hauled her to her feet. "We go," he said. The words were harsh. "Now, the third one heard the shots. He will come." The third man in the terror of the fight? She had forgotten. The running was not over. It was just beginning again. He pulled her, and she stumbled after him. He did not go back for her pistol. He just moved, pushing up the ridge, away from the place of the fight, into the deeper snow and the thicker trees. The next hours were a waking nightmare. Jenna moved in a fog of shock and exhaustion. Her leg, which had held for the fight, was a column of pure agony. The bandage was soaked. She was bleeding again. But Dante did not slow. He set a brutal pace, climbing, always climbing. He seemed to know the mountains as if they were the rooms of his own house. He found animal trails, wind-swept ridges where the snow was thin, and narrow passages between the granite spires. Jenna's world shrank to the back of his fur-covered cloak. Step, pull, breathe. Her wounded leg was a dead weight, a trap she was forced to drag. Several times, she fell, sprawling into the snow. The first time, he waited. The second time, he pulled her up. The third time, she just lay there, sobbing. Her breath came in ragged, tearing gasps. "I cannot," she whispered, the words freezing on her lips. "I cannot. Just leave me, please." He turned. His face was hard, dark against the blinding white. He looked angry, not at her words, at her surrender. "Get up," he said. "No, I am done. They can have me. I do not care. I just want it to be over." He reached down and grabbed the front of her coat. He hauled her to her feet, so hard her teeth clicked together. He shook her. "They will not have you." He growled, his voice low and fierce. "I did not pull you from the snow to let you die here. You fought. Now you will walk." His intensity was frightening. It was a raw, primal force. Jenna stared at him, her fear of him momentarily greater than her exhaustion. She hated him for it. She hated him for not letting her rest. She hated him for making her feel this pain. And in the same confused beat of her heart, she knew he was the only reason she was still alive. This terrible, pulling, angry man was her only hope. The knot of her feelings was too tight to unpick. Resentment, gratitude, terror, and a deep, aching dependence. She was tied to him, and she still did not even know him. She did not trust him. Why was he doing this? What did he want? Silas had been kind. Silas had smiled, and he had destroyed her. This man was not kind. He did not smile. What would he do? She walked. She pushed the hatred and the fear down, and she used it as fuel. She walked until the sun, a weak, pale disk, began to bleed into the western peaks, setting the snow on fire with red and orange. They found shelter as the light died. It was not a cave. It was just a place where a massive slab of granite leaned against a cliff face. creating a narrow, deep gap. It was out of the wind. Dante used his snowshoes as shovels, clearing a space on the rocky ground. He pulled thick, dry branches from the lower. Snow covered limbs of a huge spruce tree. He built a fire. It was not like the roaring, welcoming fire in his cabin. This was a tiny, mean thing, built in a small pit. It gave off almost no smoke and very little light, but it was heat. Jenna collapsed onto a bed of pine boughs he had thrown down. She was shaking again, this time from the cold setting into her bones. Her leg was a universe of pain. Dante knelt beside her. He did not ask. He just took his knife and slit her torn trouser leg further, baring the wound. The hide bandage was dark, soaked through. He gently unwound it. Jenna hissed in pain as the cold air hit the raw flesh. He took a handful of snow and washed the wound. The cold was a new, clean agony. Then he took a small leather pouch from his pack. He sprinkled a dry, greenish powder onto the cut. It stung. Finally, he bound it with a fresh strip of clean hide. His hands were sure. They were not a man's hands. She thought they were a healer's, a doctor's. Almost. They were impersonal, efficient. He finished and moved back to the fire. He took 2 strips of dried deer meat from his pack. He handed one to her. It was tough, salty. She chewed it, the fibers catching in her teeth. It was food. They sat in silence. The only sounds were the small snap of the fire and the vast, cold sigh of the wind in the pines above them. The tension stretched. Jenna had to know. She had to understand. "Why?" Her voice was a dry croak. He looked at her. His eyes were dark, reflecting the tiny fire. "Why what?" "Why are you doing this? You do not know me. Those men, they will kill you. They shot at you. Eli is dead. They will not forget that. You should have left me in the snow. You should leave me now." Dante stared into the fire. He seemed to be looking at something far away. "They will not kill me," he said, "and I will not leave you." "But why?" she insisted, her voice rising. "I am nothing to you. I am just trouble, a white woman." "I know what you are," he said, his voice flat. Jenna flinched. "What am I, property? Is that what you think, too?" He looked up, his gaze sharp. "I heard him. The man, he called you that. Silas wants his property back." The shame washed over her, hot and sickening, even in the freezing cold. The secret she had carried, the brand of her humiliation. He had heard it. She looked away, at the dark rock wall. The tears came, hot and sudden. They froze on her cheeks. "He was my husband," she whispered. The words were torn from her. "His name is Silas. He had debts, gambling. He smiled. He always smiled. He promised me a life. And then he used me to pay what he owed. He sold me to those men. Like I was a chair, a sack of flour. I ran. I fought the man, Eli. I cut him. And I ran." She was sobbing now, the ugly, dry sobs of exhaustion and grief. "I will never trust anyone again. Not ever. How can I? The man who swore to protect me, he did that. So why should I trust you? What do you want from me?" Dante was silent for a long time. The only sound was her breathing. He did not move to comfort her. He just sat, a still, dark shape by the fire. Then he spoke. His voice was low, and the hardness was gone. It was just quiet. "My wife," he said. Jenna stopped crying. She looked at him. "Her name was Morning Dove," he said, his eyes still on the fire. "We had a son. He was small. He had his mother's eyes." He paused. "We were moving south. The winter was hard. Soldiers came. They said we were on land that was not ours. Land that had always been ours, but now it was property for a railroad." He picked up a small stick and pushed it into the fire. "They did not talk. They shouted. We were in the way. They began to shoot. At the women, the old ones. My wife, she held our son. She was not a fighter. She was a kind woman. She made things grow. His voice did not break. It just became very empty. I fought. I had my rifle. I was one man. They were 20. When they were gone, there was nothing. Only smoke. Only ash. He looked at Jenna. His face was a mask of old, cold grief. Your world, it buys and sells people. My world, it burns them. It is the same fire. He turned back to the flames. I do not help you because you are a woman or because you are white. I help you because I saw your trail. You were not just running. You were fighting. You are not property. You are the one who ran from the fire. You will not be ash. I will not let them make you ash. Jenna stared at him. The chasm between them was still there. He was an Indian. She was white. They were enemies, by every rule she had ever known. But his words had built a bridge, a thin, terrifying bridge of shared loss. He was not saving her. He was not protecting her. He was a witness. He saw her, not as property, not as a woman, but as a survivor, just like him. The suspicion did not die. It was a deep root, fed by Silas's betrayal, but it was no longer the only thing growing in her heart. There was something else, a terrible, fragile dependency, a feeling that this man, this stranger who had lost everything, was the only person in the world who could possibly understand. He took the blanket from his own pack, the red and black one from the cabin. He tossed it to her. Sleep, he said. I will watch. She wrapped the heavy wool around her. She lay down on the pine boughs. The pain in her leg was a dull, distant drum. He sat by the fire, his rifle across his knees, his back to her, watching the dark mouth of their shelter. He was a sentinel. Jenna closed her eyes. She was cold. She was in pain. She was being hunted, but for the first time since she had fled Silas's house, the raw, tearing panic was gone. She was not alone. She was with a man who knew exactly what it meant to burn. She slept. The sun rose weak and watery, a pale smear of yellow behind the gray peaks. The small fire was a pile of white ash. Dante had not slept. Jenna knew this. She had drifted in and out of a painful, exhausted sleep, and every time she had opened her eyes, she had seen his silhouette. He was a statue carved from the same rock that sheltered them, his rifle resting in the crook of his arms. He gave her no time to feel the morning cold. As soon as the light was strong enough to see, he was on his feet. He kicked snow over the ashes of the fire. He gave her another strip of the tough, dried venison. She chewed it slowly. It felt like chewing leather, but it was fuel. Her body craved it. We move, he said, not a question. He had packed his few things. He turned and looked at her leg. He did not ask how it felt. He knew. He handed her a stick, a thick, sturdy branch of pine he had trimmed. Use this. Jenna took the walking stick. She felt a flash of resentment. He was treating her like a cripple, but the resentment died as soon as she put weight on her leg. The pain was sharp, a bright line of fire from her calf to her knee. The stick was a mercy. Dante strapped the snowshoes to his own boots. Then he produced a second, smaller pair from his pack. They were older, the wood darker, the webbing intricately woven. Jenna stared at them. You had those in the cabin. He nodded. He knelt in the snow in front of her. They were my wife's. He said, his voice was flat. He said it as a simple fact, not a story. Jenna felt a complicated twist in her stomach. Shame, intrusion, and a strange, cold honor. She said nothing. She sat on the rock while he strapped her soaked boots into the bindings. His hands moved quickly, his fingers sure on the frozen leather straps. She could feel the warmth of his body near her. She watched the long, black hair that fell forward as he worked. She had an impulse, sudden and strange, to reach out and touch it. She balled her hand into a fist. He finished. He stood and looked at her. He told her she must walk in his steps, exactly in his steps. It would be easier. The first hour was misery. The snowshoes were awkward. They felt like wooden planks tied to her feet. She tripped. She fell, tangling her legs. She was clumsy, and she hated it. She was a burden. Dante would walk 100 paces and then stop, turning to watch her. He said nothing. His patience was a heavy blanket. It made her feel more useless than his anger would have. "I cannot do this," she said, after falling again. She was breathing hard, the cold air searing her lungs. He walked back to her. He did not offer a hand. He pointed at her feet. "You lift," he said. "You do not drag. You lift. Now get up." He was not her savior. He was her teacher, and he was a hard one. Jenna pushed herself up, using the stick. She was angry. Good. The anger was warm. She lifted her feet. She walked. They moved through a world of impossible, silent beauty. The snow was a thick, perfect blanket over everything. The pines were draped in white. The sky was a hard, brilliant blue, but it was a beauty with teeth. The cold was a constant, pressing enemy. The silence was the sound of a world that was waiting for them to die. Dante taught her to live in that world. He did not give lessons. He just did things, and he made her watch. He would stop. He would point. Jenna would look, seeing nothing but snow. He would point again, to a tiny disturbance in the powder. A track. He told her it was a snowshoe hare. He showed her how the track led to a thicket of willow. He gave her a coil of thin wire from his pack. He showed her how to make a loop, how to find the path the hare used, how to tie the loop to a branch so it hung at the height of a head. Her fingers were numb. She fumbled with the wire. She could not make the knot hold. She cursed, the word a puff of white. Dante watched her. Then he moved. He put his hands over hers. His hands were rough, calloused, and surprisingly warm. They were large, and they completely enveloped her own. He did not just guide her. He took her fingers and folded them, pulling the wire, tightening the knot. Jenna froze. The feeling, it was not just the warmth. It was the contact. It was the simple, male strength of his hands. A jolt went through her, a current of pure, physical awareness that had nothing to do with the cold. It was terrifying. It was the last thing she wanted to feel. It was the feeling that had led her to Silas. That weakness, that desire to be touched, to be held. She snatched her hands away. The snare fell into the snow. Dante looked at her. His face was, as always, unreadable. He did not seem to understand. He just bent, picked up the wire, and set the snare himself. 1, 2, 3, a perfect loop. He stood. He told her they would check it on their way back, if they came back this way. He turned and kept walking. Jenna followed, her face hot with a shame she did not understand. She was angry at him for touching her. She was angry at herself for feeling it. Her mind was a battleground. She had trusted a man, Silas. He had a soft touch and a kind voice. He had promised her the world. He had been a liar. His kindness was a trap. Dante was not kind. He was hard. He was silent. He offered her nothing but survival. But he had touched her, and her body had betrayed her. It had responded. She began to fear him, but in a new way. It was not the fear of a captive. It was the fear of a person losing control. She felt a pull toward him, a dependence that was becoming something more. She was drawn to his silence, his certainty. He was like the mountains. He was dangerous, he was cold, but he was real. He was not a lie. This attraction felt like a sickness. It felt like another betrayal, a betrayal of herself. How could she, a woman who had been sold, who was running for her life, feel this animal pulled toward a man, an Indian man, at that, a savage? The world would call him, the world Silas lived in. She walked behind him, her eyes on his broad back. She watched the easy, powerful way he moved. He was part of this place. She was an intruder. He was keeping her alive. She was a weight, a burden. She hated this feeling. She hated her own weakness. The tension grew over the next few days. They did not talk about their pasts again. They talked of the trail, of the weather, of food. Or rather, he would speak a few words, and she would nod. Once they saw a deer. It was far off, a brown shape against the distant snow. Dante raised his rifle. He waited. Jenna watched his profile. He was completely still. His breathing seemed to stop. He was a hunter. He was death. The rifle cracked. The deer fell. He made her help him butcher it. He gave her his knife. He showed her where to cut, how to peel the hide back from the still warm body. Jenna's hands were covered in blood. Her stomach turned. She had never done anything like this. But he stood over her and watched, and he would not let her stop. He told her this was life. This was the price of it. She did the work. She learned. That night they ate fresh meat, roasted over a fire in a deep rocky shelter. It tasted like life. It tasted like victory. She had earned it. She looked at him across the small flames. His face was shadowed. He was just a man who had lost everything, a man who knew how to live. She felt a sudden, powerful wave of respect. It was a deeper, more dangerous feeling than the physical attraction. Respect was the thing that opened the door to trust, and trust was a locked room she had sworn never to enter again. "You should have left me," she said, the words quiet. He looked up from cleaning his rifle. "I do not leave things that fight." "I am not fighting," she said, the bitterness rising. "I am being dragged. I am slowing you down. Those men, they will catch us because of me." "They will not catch us." "How do you know?" she demanded. "There are two of them, Abel, and the other one? They are smart. They have horses. Probably." "They are not smart," Dante said. He laid his rifle down. "They are loud. They follow. They do not see." "What do you mean?" "This morning. Did you see the eagle?" Jenna shook her head. "It was there. It watched us. It circled. It knows this land. It was watching the men who follow us, too. They are 2 miles behind. They stopped to make a big fire, a stupid fire. We are 1 mile from the high pass. They think they are pushing us into a trap. They think Abel is waiting on the other side." Jenna's blood ran cold. "Is he?" "Maybe, but they are wrong." "Wrong about what?" "They are not pushing us," Dante said. He stood and looked out of the shelter, into the deep, frozen night. "I am pulling them." Jenna did not understand. Pulling them where? Dante turned. His eyes, in the firelight, seemed to hold a dark, cold knowledge. "To a place I know. A place where they will stop following." The confidence in his voice was absolute. But it did not comfort Jenna. It frightened her. This was not just a flight for survival. He was hunting them. He was using her as bait. This realization brought a new, sharp anxiety. She was a piece in his game. Was she, or was he protecting her? She could not tell. The line between the two was blurry. She felt a strong, undeniable pull to this man, this warrior. But she was also profoundly afraid. He was not a simple man. He was as complex and as dangerous as the mountains they were in. She was tied to him, and she did not know if he was leading her to safety or to another, different kind of destruction. She was drawn to him. She was terrified of him. The two feelings were a knot in her chest, and she did not know how to unpick it. The pass was a place of ghosts. The wind did not just blow here, it lived. It was a solid, moving thing, a river of ice that tore at the rocks. Dante had led them upward, into the heart of it. Jenna had followed. She had no choice. Her world had shrunk to the space between her own feet, clad in the dead woman's snowshoes. Lift, place, lift, place. The walking stick Dante had given her was a third leg, but her wounded one was failing. The ache was no longer a sharp line. It was a dull, heavy, spreading poison. It felt thick, swollen. She could feel the heat of it, a sick warmth, even through the crushing cold. She had followed him, trusting his confidence. He was pulling them. He was setting a trap. She was the bait. The thought had stayed with her, a small, cold stone in her stomach. It made her feel used. It was a familiar feeling. Silas had used her, but this was different. Silas had used her to save himself. Dante was using her to save her. The logic was twisted, a knot she could not untangle. And right now, the logic did not matter. Only the next step mattered. The wind hit her. It came around a high spire of granite, a physical blow that knocked her sideways. She stumbled. Her wounded leg, the one she had been favoring, twisted under her. The snowshoe caught. She fell, hard, onto the packed, wind-swept snow. A sound tore from her throat. It was not a scream. It was a dry, broken sob. The pain was white. It was absolute. It flashed up her leg, into her hip, exploding behind her eyes. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Dante was at her side in an instant. He had been 10 paces ahead. He turned, and he was just there. He knelt beside her. "What is it?" "I cannot," she gasped, the wind stealing her words. "I cannot get up. My leg. It is broken. I think it is broken." His face was a mask of granite. He did not waste time with comfort. He ran his hands down her leg, his touch firm, assessing. He probed the knee. He pressed on the calf. Jenna cried out again when his fingers found the wound. His hand came away wet. The fresh blood was a shocking, bright red against the white snow. She had torn it open. "It is not broken," he said. His voice was flat. But she saw something in his eyes, a new urgency, a flicker of something she had not seen before. Concern, or perhaps calculation. "But you have torn the muscle. The bleeding has started again." "I cannot walk," she whispered. She was crying now, silent, hot tears that froze instantly to her cheeks. "I am finished. You have to leave me. Go, set your trap. Do what you have to do. Just leave me." He looked at her. His face was unreadable. He looked up at the sky. The clouds were moving fast, a thick, gray lid being pulled over the mountains. The wind was rising. A storm. A real one. "Get up," he said. "I told you, I cannot," she screamed, hitting the snow with her gloved fist. "I did not ask you to walk," he said. He turned his back to her. He crouched in the snow. "Put your arms around my neck." Jenna stared at his broad back. "What?" "Do it. We cannot stay here." She hesitated. To touch him like that, it was too much. But the cold was already seeping into her. The pain was making her dizzy. She was dying. She knew it. She was at the end. She reached out, her arms, shaking, went around his neck. She clutched the front of his fur cloak. He shifted his weight, and in one smooth, powerful motion, he stood. He lifted her. Her feet left the ground. He adjusted her, settling her weight on his back. He was impossibly strong. She was not a small woman, but he held her as if she were a child. He looped his arms back, holding her under her knees. Her wounded leg hung, throbbing with every beat of her heart. He began to walk. He did not just carry her. He carried her up the pass, into the teeth of the wind, over the ice-covered rocks. He moved with a steady, relentless rhythm. Jenna clung to him. Her face was buried in the fur of his cloak. It smelled of pine and smoke, and him it was a wild, clean smell. She was so close to him she could feel the heat of his body, the massive effort of his muscles. She felt a wave of shame so profound it made her dizzy. He was spending his life to save hers, and she was just a weight, a useless, broken thing. The storm hit them at the crest of the pass. It was not just snow. It was ice, a horizontal blizzard that cut their visibility to nothing. The world vanished into a screaming, white void. Dante did not falter. He bent his head into the wind and kept moving. He was following a path only he could see. Jenna began to lose time. She was in a daze of pain and cold. She was so cold. Her shivering was a violent, uncontrollable spasm. She knew she was in trouble. She knew he could not keep this up. He would have to drop her. He would leave her, and he would save himself. It was the only logical thing to do. She waited for it. She waited for him to stop, to let her slide into the snowdrift that would be her grave. But he did not stop. He walked for hours. Or maybe it was only minutes. Time was gone. She was fading. The pain in her leg was a distant, dull thing. The cold was being replaced by a sleepy, comfortable warmth. She knew it was a lie. She knew it was death. She tried to tell him. She tried to tell him to put her down, but her lips were frozen. They would not move. She must have passed out. She woke when the motion stopped. The wind was gone. She was in darkness, a deep, quiet darkness. He was lowering her. She felt a flat, solid surface beneath her, earth or stone. She heard a scraping sound, a spark, another, then a small, yellow flame leaped up. He was lighting a lantern. The light grew. They were in a cave. No, not a cave. It was a room. It was built into the rock. The walls were stacked stone, and the ceiling was thick timbers. It was a tiny, hidden cabin, dug into the side of the mountain. In the corner was a small, pot-bellied stove. Dry wood was stacked neatly beside it. Dante moved with a swift, desperate urgency. He stuffed wood into the stove. Adding a piece of dried moss, he struck a match. The fire caught. A small, roaring sound filled the room. He turned to her. She was lying on a pile of furs by the door, where he had set her down. She was shaking so hard her teeth rattled. Her skin was a pale, bluish white. "You are freezing," he said. His voice was grim. He came to her. He did not ask. He took his knife. He began to cut her clothes. Jenna flinched. "No." The word was a bare breath. "Your clothes are ice. They are killing you," he said. He did not stop. He was not asking her. He was saving her life. He cut her coat away. He cut the laces of her boots. He pulled them off. Her feet were numb, white blocks. He cut away her wool trousers. He was methodical, careful not to touch her skin more than he had to. But he was seeing her. She was exposed. The shame was a fire that her cold body could not feel. He cut away her long underwear, stiff with frozen sweat and blood. She was naked. She was lying on a fur pelt in front of a strange man, in a hidden room. Dante did not look at her, not at her body. He looked at her feet. He looked at her hands. He took 2 heavy, dry blankets from a storage box and threw them over her. He began to rub her feet, his hands hard and rough, trying to force the life back into them. He rubbed her hands. The friction was painful. "You are safe," he said. He did not look at her face. "This is my place. No one knows it. The men, they went the other way. They are in the storm. We are not." He had tricked them. He had led them to the pass, and then he had vanished into his secret hole. He left her and went to the stove. He put a pot of snow on it to melt. He looked at her leg. The bandage was a frozen, bloody ruin. He said, "This will hurt." He came back with a cloth and the pot of now warm water. He gently, so gently, began to wash the wound. The warmth was an agony. Jenna cried out, twisting. "Stay still," he commanded. But his voice was not hard. It was low, steady. He cleaned the wound. It was worse than he thought. It was deep, angry. The edges were a dark, inflamed red. The cold had held the infection back. The warmth would make it bloom. He went to a small wooden box on a shelf. He took out a different pouch, and a needle, and a thin, dark thread. Jenna's eyes went wide. What is that? Sinew and horsetail. It will close the cut. It must be closed. He threaded the needle. He came back to her. He did not ask. He just started. Jenna bit her lip until it bled. The pain was a clean, sharp fire. But it was his hands that held her. His hands were so large, they were rough, but his touch was impossibly light. He was a warrior. He was a hunter, and he was sewing her skin together as if he were mending a delicate piece of buckskin. He finished. He tied the knot. He powdered the wound. He wrapped it in a new, clean hide bandage. He pulled the blankets up to her chin. She was shaking. From the pain, from the cold, from the shock. The cabin was growing warm. The small stove was putting out a wave of life-giving heat. He stood up. He looked at her, lying on the floor. In the corner, there was a bed, a real bed, a bunk, built into the wall. It had a thick mattress, stuffed with grass, and on top of it, 2 thick, folded buffalo robes. Dante walked to the bed. He pulled the robes back. Then he came back to her. He slid his arms under her, one beneath her back, one under her knees, the same way he had lifted her in the snow. But this time, it was different. There was no desperation. There was just a slow, careful strength. He lifted her. She was wrapped in the blankets, a bundle in his arms. He carried her the 2 steps to the bunk. He laid her down on the soft mattress. The relief was so profound, so sudden that Jenna could not breathe. She looked up at him. His face was in shadow. He was looking down at her. His face was not hard. It was not impassive. It was tired. It was full of a deep, old sadness. He pulled the buffalo robes over her. They were heavy. They were warm. They smelled of leather and sage. "That bed's meant for you," he said. His voice was low, almost a whisper. He did not mean the bed in the cabin. He meant his bed. This was his refuge. This was his place of rest, and he was giving it to her. Jenna looked at him, and the walls she had built, the high, thick walls of mistrust and fear that Silas had taught her to build. They just crumbled. They turned to dust. This man, this savage, this killer, he had carried her through a blizzard. He had cut her clothes from her frozen body, and he had not shamed her. He had sewn her wound, and now he was giving her his bed. This was not a trap. This was not a lie. This was real. The tears came again, not the hot, angry tears of pain, but slow, quiet tears of she did not know what. Relief, gratitude. It was a feeling so large it terrified her. She was opening up. She was letting him in, and it felt like she was falling. Dante saw her tears. His face tightened. He looked away, as if he had seen something he should not have. He turned his back to her. He went to the stove. He dipped a cup into the pot. He brought it to her. It was broth. He had put herbs in it. He held it to her lips. "Drink." She did. It was hot. It was life. He watched her, and his face was a battle. He was a man who had sworn off feeling. He had lost his wife, his child. He had come to the mountains to be ice, to be stone, and this woman, this broken, fighting, white woman she was making him feel. He was afraid. He was terrified that he was letting her in. He was terrified that he would care, because the things he cared for, they burned. They turned to ash. He was afraid he would lose her, just like he lost Morning Dove. He took the empty cup. He went to the other side of the small room. He sat on the floor, his back against the stone wall. He picked up his rifle. He began to clean it. A familiar, grounding motion. He was the warrior again, the sentinel. Jenna watched him. He was a man of 2 pieces, the hard, cold killer, and the gentle, heartbroken man who had given her his bed. She was beginning to realize they were not 2 pieces. They were the same man, and her heart, which she had sworn was dead, was aching with a feeling she had promised herself she would never, ever feel again. They stayed in the hidden cabin for a week. It was a lifetime. Outside, the high country was a frozen, silent hell. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world so white and clean it was like the first day of creation. Inside the tiny, stone-walled room, a different battle was being fought. Jenna's leg was not healing. The wound Dante had stitched was angry. It was a dark, swollen purple. The skin stretched tight and hot to the touch. The fever came on the third day. It came with a fog, a rolling, noxious mist that filled her mind. She would be burning hot, kicking off the heavy buffalo robes. And then, an hour later, she would be shaking with a cold so deep it felt as if her bones were made of ice. Dante did not rest. He was a constant, quiet presence. He bathed her face with snowmelt. He forced hot, bitter herbal broth between her cracked lips. He would sit by the bunk, his hand on her forehead. His hand was rough, but it was cool. It was an anchor in her sea of pain. Through the fever, she spoke. She told him things she had never told another soul. She spoke of her father, a stern, quiet man who had died too young. She spoke of Silas. She did not rail against him. She spoke of the man she had first met, the charming man with the quick smile who made her feel, for the first time, like she was beautiful. She spoke of the betrayal, not with anger, but with a deep, hollow confusion. "He said he loved me," she whispered, her eyes wide, staring at the timbered ceiling. "He said it. How can you say that and then do that? How?" Dante listened. He sat on the stool, his face in the shadow of the lantern light. He heard the confession of a heart that had been broken by a lie. His own heart, encased in the ice of his own grief, felt a painful, thawing crack. This woman's pain was a mirror. He had been betrayed by a world that had lied. She had been betrayed by a man. The shape of the wound was the same. On the 7th day, he knew he was losing. The poultices, the cleaning, the broth, they were not enough. The infection was deep. It was in her blood. He touched her cheek. It was like a furnace. Her breathing was shallow. He made his decision. It was a terrible one. He could not save her here. He had to take her to a white doctor. He had to take her down from the mountain, out of his world, and into hers. The world that was hunting them. The world that hated him. It was the only chance she had. He wrapped her as if she were a child. He bundled her in every fur, every blanket he had. He strapped her to his back, using leather tongs to create a seat for her. She was a dead weight. She was barely conscious. He stepped out of the hidden cabin. He did not look back. He started the long, brutal journey down. It took a day and a half. He moved without stopping, fueled by a cold, quiet desperation. He avoided the main trails. He followed game paths. He scrambled down scree slopes. He waded through snow-filled gullies. He carried her. He did not let himself think about the men who were hunting them. He did not let himself think about what would happen in the town. He just thought of her breathing. A shallow puff of white in the cold air, right by his ear. As long as he saw that puff, he kept moving. The town was called Redemption Creek. It was a lie. It was a handful of raw lumber buildings dropped in a muddy valley, a scar on the snow. There was a saloon, a general store that was also the post office, and a small, plank-sided building with a sign that read Dr. T. Finnegan. He walked straight down the middle of the street. The town stopped. A man hauling a feed sack froze. 2 prospectors on the porch of the general store stopped talking. A woman, her face hard, peered out of a window. They were not looking at Jenna. They were looking at him. A tall, armed Indian in furs, carrying a white woman on his back. It was a walking powder keg. Dante ignored them. His face was granite. He walked to the doctor's office. He did not knock. He kicked the door open. The man inside was small, with a fringe of gray hair and spectacles. He was reading a book. He looked up, his eyes wide. "She is dying." Dante said. His voice was a low growl. He unstrapped Jenna from his back and carried her, in his arms now, to the small examination cot. He laid her down gently. Her leg, it is poisoned. Dr. Finnegan stared at Dante. He stared at the bundle of furs. He was afraid, but he was a doctor. He moved to the cot. He pulled back the furs. He saw Jenna's face, waxy and pale, her lips blue. He saw the angry, swollen leg. He swore, a soft, professional curse. "Get out," the doctor said to Dante, his voice shaking a little. "I cannot work with you with this in here." "I will be outside," Dante said. He looked at Jenna. She was unconscious. He touched her hair, just once, a brief, fleeting touch. Then he turned. He walked out of the office. He pulled the door closed. He stood on the small porch. He was exposed. He was a target. He knew it. His rifle was in his hand. He did not lean. He stood, his back to the wall. And he watched the town. The town watched him. Inside, the doctor worked. He laid out his scalpels. He lit his lamp. He knew this was bad. Dante waited for an hour. The tension in the street was a visible thing. Men were gathering on the saloon porch. They were talking. They were pointing. Then he saw them. 2 men. They had just ridden into town. One was a big bearded man, his arm in a sling. Abel, the other was a thin, rat-faced man with a long coat. Hatch, the third man, the leader. They rode straight to the saloon. They tied up their horses. They looked at Dante. Abel saw him. His face went dark with recognition. He pointed. "That's him. That's the savage." Hatch looked at Dante. He looked at the doctor's office. A slow, ugly smile spread across his face. Well, she led us right to him. Or he led us right to her. "Go get the horses, Abel. I'll get the property." Hatch walked off the saloon porch. He started across the muddy street. He was not hurrying. He was confident. This was his town, his world. Dante stepped off the porch. He stood in the middle of the street. He raised his rifle. "Stay back." Hatch stopped. He laughed. "An Indian, giving orders, in Redemption Creek. That's a new one. I'm here for the woman, friend. Silas wants her. You can either walk away, or you can be buried here. Makes no difference to me." "She is not property," Dante said. His voice was quiet, but it carried in the cold. Still air. "She is what I say she is," Hatch said. He unbuttoned his coat. His hand hovered over the pistol on his hip. "Last chance." "No," Dante said. The world exploded. Hatch was fast. His pistol was out and firing, but Dante was faster. He did not aim for the man. He aimed for the man's gun. He fired his rifle from the hip. The heavy slug smashed into Hatch's pistol, sending metal fragments flying. Hatch screamed, clutching his shattered hand. But there was another, Abel. He was not at the horses. He was at the side of the street, between the buildings. He had his own rifle. He fired. Dante saw the movement. He turned, but he was too late. The bullet caught him high in the chest. It spun him around. The force of it threw him back against the wall of the doctor's office. He slid down, leaving a dark, wet smear on the wood. He landed in a sitting position in the mud. His rifle fell from his hands. Abel walked out, his rifle smoking. "Got him, I got the devil." Hatch was clutching his ruined hand, his face white with pain. Good. Now get the girl." Abel grinned. He started toward the doctor's office. He was 10 feet from Dante, who was slumped, his eyes open, blood welling from his chest. The door to the office flew open. It was not the doctor. It was Jenna. She was not the unconscious girl from the mountain. Her eyes were wild, blazing with the fever. Her hair was matted. She was wearing only her long undergarment, which the doctor had cut, and a blanket she had wrapped around her shoulders. She was barefoot in the cold mud, and in her hand, she held the doctor's heavy revolver. She had heard the shots. She had heard Dante's name. She had heard Hatch's voice. And something inside her, the last, frozen, terrified part of her, had finally broken. "Get away from him," she said. Her voice was a raw croak. Abel stopped. He stared. He had been chasing a ghost, a piece of property. This was a fury. This was a nightmare. He laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Look at that! The little rabbit's got a gun." He raised his rifle. Jenna did not hesitate. She did not close her eyes. She did not remember the last time she had fired a gun. She just saw the man who had hunted her, and she saw the man who had saved her, bleeding in the dirt. She raised the pistol with both hands, and she pulled the trigger. The gun roared. The bullet went wide. Abel laughed again. He sighted down his rifle. "No," Jenna said. She pulled the trigger again. The shot hit Abel in the stomach. He looked down, a look of profound, stupid surprise on his face. He dropped his rifle. He sat down in the mud. Jenna walked forward. She was a spirit. She was the ghost of the mountain. She stood over him. He looked up at her. She pulled the trigger a third time. Hatch was screaming, "Shoot her! Somebody shoot her!" But no one in the town moved. They just watched. Jenna turned. She walked, her bare feet planting in the freezing mud, toward Hatch. He was trying to get his other gun, his left hand fumbling. She raised the pistol. She was not a victim. She was not property. She was not running. She was the judgment. "Jenna, wait," Hatch begged. His face was a mask of terror. "Silas, he'll pay you." "He already did," Jenna said. The door of the doctor's office opened again. Dante was there. He was holding himself up on the doorframe. His face was gray. His chest was a ruin of blood. But he was alive. He had his knife in his hand. He looked at Jenna. She was standing in the street, a queen of blood and mud, with the gun in her hand. "Jenna," he whispered, "it is done." She looked at him. She saw him, and the fire in her eyes softened. The fever, the rage, it all focused on him, on the blood. She dropped the gun. It fell into the mud. She ran to him. She stumbled, her legs screaming, but she did not care. She threw her arms around him, holding him up. "You are hurt," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You are hurt." The doctor ran out, his hands bloody. "My God! What? Get him inside! Both of you! Get inside now!" Jenna looked down at Dante, her arms supporting him. He was heavy. He was bleeding. He had taken a bullet for her. For her. And she had not run. She had stayed. She had fought. She looked at the men on the ground. She looked at the silent town. She was not afraid. Not of them, not of her past. She was only afraid of one thing. She was terrified of losing the man who was bleeding in her arms. She and the doctor dragged him back inside, away from the death in the street. The door slammed, shutting out the sight of the muddy street and the two dark, still shapes. The sound of it, a solid, wooden thud, was the sound of a lid closing on a box. They were inside. The world was outside. The small room was suddenly, shockingly quiet, filled only with the sound of ragged, painful breathing. Dr. Finnegan, his face the color of old paper, was trembling. He looked from the bloody ruin of Dante's chest to Jenna, who stood, a wild apparition wrapped in a blanket, her eyes burning with a feverish light. "On the table," Finnegan stammered, pointing to the sturdy wooden table in the center of the room. "Not the cot. I need light. I need my God. My God!" Jenna did not speak. She and the doctor half carried, half dragged Dante. He was a dead weight, his body heavy and limp. He was conscious, but barely. His dark eyes were open, filmed with pain, and they were fixed on her. He was watching her. They got him onto the table. The blood, it was everywhere. It pumped, a dark, rhythmic welling, from the hole in his chest. "Press!" Finnegan yelled. his voice cracking. He shoved a wad of clean white cloth into Jenna's hands. "Here, press down. Hard. As hard as you can. Do not let up." Jenna pressed. She put all her weight on the wound, her arms shaking. She could feel the terrible, wet heat of his life pouring out against her hands. Dante's body arched, a silent scream of agony. His hand shot out, grabbing her arm. His grip was iron. "I have to get the bullet," the doctor was muttering, his hands flying as he laid out instruments. A scalpel, a long, thin probe, forceps. "It's in deep. It missed the lung, or he'd be spitting blood. But it's near the shoulder. He's a strong man. He might if the bleeding—" Jenna's world shrank. It became the small, hot, terrible space of the wound under her hands. It became the fierce, desperate grip on her arm. It became his face, inches from hers. His brow was beaded with sweat. His teeth were gritted. "Stay," she whispered. Her voice was a low, ragged hiss. It was not a plea. It was a command. "You do not get to do this. You do not get to save me and then leave. Do you hear me? Stay." His eyes focused on her. He saw her. The fever, the mud caked on her bare feet, the blood, his blood, all over her. He saw the woman who had stood in the street and faced down 2 armed men for him. He had been afraid to care for her. He had been afraid she would be another mourning dove, another person he would fail to protect, another soul turned to ash. He had been wrong. She was not ash. She was the fire. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. He would stay. This is going. I have no whiskey for him," the doctor said, his voice frantic. "I cannot, girl. You have to hold him. Hold him down." Jenna released her grip on the wound, and the doctor instantly replaced her hands with a thick, folded pad. She moved. She ignored the screaming fire in her own leg. She leaned over Dante, her body pressing him to the table. She wrapped her arms around his torso, pinning his arms. She pressed her cheek against the side of his face. She could feel the tremors of pain shaking his entire body as the doctor began to probe the wound. Dante did not scream. A low, guttural groan was forced from his chest, a sound more terrible than any scream. He fought the pain. He fought the doctor's hand. "Hold him!" Finnegan snapped. "I am," Jenna snarled back, the ferocity in her voice shocking them both. She tightened her grip. "Dante, look at me!" He opened his eyes. He found hers. "It is just pain," she said, her voice dropping, becoming a low, fierce murmur against his ear. "You have felt pain before. This is nothing. This is just the world. You are stronger than this. You are the mountain. You are the stone. It cannot break you. Stay with me." She was giving him back the strength he had given her. She was feeding his life with her own will. And he held on. He anchored himself to her voice, to the feeling of her body, trembling but strong, holding him to the world. The doctor worked. The metallic click of the instruments was the only sound, besides their breathing and the terrible, wet work. Outside, the town was a tomb. The silence was louder than the gunshots had been. They were alone, trapped in this small, bloody room. Jenna's leg was on fire. The fever was making the room spin. But she did not move. She did not waver. The woman who had been afraid of a raised voice, who had been broken by a lie, was now holding a man's life in her hands. She had taken 2 lives to save this one. She faced that truth. She had walked into the street. She had seen Abel, the man who had hunted her, and she had felt nothing, no fear, no pity, only a cold, clear purpose. She had killed him. She had faced Hatch, the man who had bought her, and she had been ready to kill him, too. The fear was gone. Silas had broken her. The mountain had forged her. Dante had given her a reason. She realized she was not afraid of Silas anymore. He was just a man, a weak, smiling, hollow man. He had no power over her. He had sold her, but he had not broken her. He had just let her go. He had sent her into the wilderness, and in the wilderness, she had found this terrible, strong, silent man who had seen her, not as property, but as a fighter. And she had found herself the fighter. The doctor grunted. "Got it." There was a clink as something heavy and leaden dropped into a metal bowl. "It's out. Now, the bleeding. Ma'am, I need the cautery." He pointed to a long, metal rod with a wooden handle, its tip resting in the hottest part of the pot-bellied stove. Jenna looked at it. She looked at Dante. He was pale, his eyes closed. He was slipping. "Dante," she said, her voice sharp. He did not respond. "No," she said. She shook him. "Dante, open your eyes. Look at me." His eyelids fluttered. He found her. "This will hurt," she said. She was not gentle. She was honest. "I will hold you." The doctor came with the cautery iron, the hiss, the smell of burning. Dante's body went rigid, a bow of pure, elemental agony. But Jenna held him. She held him, her arms wrapped around him, her face in his hair, her own tears of pain and fury and love staining his skin. She held him until it was done. The doctor fell back, his face gray and soaked with sweat. He is alive. He is alive." Jenna let go. She slid to the floor, her own leg finally giving out. She sat there, in the blood and the mud from her feet, her back against the table. She was shaking. The fever, the shock, the adrenaline, it all came crashing down. Dante was alive. He was unconscious, but he was breathing. His chest was a ruin of seared, blackened flesh, but he was alive. She looked at her hands. They were covered in his blood. She had held his life. She had protected him. The roles were reversed. He was now the vulnerable one. He was the one who needed her. A slow, heavy boot step sounded on the porch. Then another. Someone was outside the door. Jenna was on her feet in an instant. The fever, the pain, it vanished. She grabbed the heavy pistol from the cot, where she had dropped it. She checked the loads. Her hands were shaking, but she was steady. The doctor looked at her, his eyes wide. That will be Marshal Bain. He saw it. He saw it all." Jenna walked to the door. She stood beside it. She was not a victim. She was not a patient. She was a guard. She was Dante's guard. He had been her sentinel. Now, she was his. A heavy knock. "Dr. Finnegan, you in there?" The doctor could not speak. He just whimpered. Jenna raised her voice. It was hoarse, but it was strong. "What do you want?" There was a silence outside. Who is that? Is that the woman?" "I am the woman." Jenna said, "What do you want?" "I am Marshal Bain. I need to ask what happened here." "2 men tried to kill us," Jenna said, her voice flat, cold. "They lost. Now go away. The doctor is working." There was another, longer pause. The marshal was a reasonable man. He had seen Hatch draw first. He had seen Abel fire at Dante. He had seen the woman, barefoot in the mud, defend the fallen man. It was irregular, but he had also seen the bodies. "Ma'am?" The marshal's voice was tired. "There are 2 dead men in my street, and Hatch is on his way to Cheyenne to get a federal warrant. He says, for your arrest, for murder." Jenna's hand tightened on the pistol. So, it was not over. Hatch had run. "Let him come," Jenna said. "Ma'am, you do not understand. He's saying the Indian kidnapped you. He's saying you're his property, that he has papers." Jenna felt a cold, slow rage build. It was so much stronger than the fever. "I am not his property, and this man." She looked back at Dante, at his still, pale face. "His name is Dante. He saved my life, and I saved his. We are allies." She said the word, and she knew it was true, more than true. He was her ally. He was her partner. He was the other half of her. "You tell the marshal," she said, her voice shaking, but not with fear. "You tell him that I am not running, not anymore. I will be here, and if Hatch comes back, or if Silas comes back, I will be here, and I will be ready. Now go away." She heard the marshal sigh. She heard the bootsteps move away. She was alone, with her doctor and her man. She turned back. The doctor was already tending to her leg, his hands shaking. You are a terrifying woman." Jenna looked at Dante. The love she felt was a physical thing. It was a wave, hot and strong, rising up from her feet, through her wounded leg, into her chest. It was not the soft, sweet, lying love of Silas. This was a love of blood, of ice, of shared pain and a shared will to live. It was a love that was as strong and as dangerous as the mountains themselves. "He is a terrifying man," she whispered. She sat on the floor by the table, the pistol in her lap. We are a good match." She would stay awake. She would watch him. She would let no one and nothing harm him. She had faced her past. Now, she would fight for their future. The small, stuffy room smelled of blood, burnt flesh, and fear. Outside, the town of Redemption Creek was holding its breath. The silence was heavy, a blanket of judgment. Inside, there was only the sound of Dr. Finnegan's quick, nervous breathing and the low, shallow rasp of Dante's. Jenna sat on the floor, her back against the wall, the heavy revolver still resting in her lap. Her world had shrunk to the man on the table. He was alive. The doctor had said so, but he was so still. His skin was the color of ash. The raw, seared ruin of his chest was a terrible testament to what he had taken for her. Dr. Finnegan finished washing his hands. They were shaking. He looked at Jenna, a wild creature in the corner, her hair matted with sweat and dirt, her feet caked in mud, her hands stained with blood, his blood. "Ma'am," he said, his voice quiet. "He is stable, for now. The bullet is out, the bleeding is stopped. Now it is the fever and the shock. For both of you." Jenna's eyes did not move from Dante. "He needs a blanket." "He is warm. I have put a hot stone at his feet. It is you I am worried about now. Your leg. You are burning with fever. I saw it when you ran out. You should not even be standing." "I am fine," she said. The words were flat. She was a sentinel, a wolf guarding its wounded mate. She would not be moved. "You are not fine," Finnegan said, and his voice firmed. The doctor, the man of science, was returning. "You are in shock, and your leg, I saw the bandage. It is soaked. If I do not clean it, you will lose it. You will die. You are no good to him dead." That broke through. No good to him dead. She looked down at her own leg, as if seeing it for the first time. The pain, which she had been ignoring, came flooding back, a wave of sickness and fire. She nodded. "Once." "Good! On the cot, now!" She moved. Every step was a fresh agony. She sat on the cot where he had first laid her. It felt like a lifetime ago. She put the heavy pistol on the small table beside her, within easy reach. She did not let it go far. The doctor knelt. He cut away the new bandage, the one she had put on in the hidden cabin. He hissed, What in God's name?" Jenna looked. The wound was open, angry, but the edges they were held together by a neat line of dark, thin stitches. "He did that," Jenna whispered, "on the mountain, with a needle and sinew." Finnegan stared. He touched the edge of the wound. The flesh was hot, but the stitches were perfect. I have seen cavalry surgeons do worse. He saved your leg. He stopped the infection from spreading deep." The doctor looked over his shoulder at the still figure on the table. A new, grudging respect was in his eyes. "He saved you so I could save you. Now let me—" He worked quickly. He cleaned the wound. He did not remove Dante's stitches. He worked around them, applying a stinging, yellow salve. He is a paradox, your friend. He sews a wound like a master, but he lives in a cave. He lives where he is free, Jenna said. The doctor looked up at her. Her eyes were clear, the feverish madness of the street fight replaced by a cold, hard clarity. And you free? Ma'am, Marshal Bain is not wrong. Hatch will be back. He is a man who holds a grudge. And he has paper. He has the law. He has a lie, Jenna said. And I have this. She touched the pistol. That will not be enough. Not against a federal warrant. Finnegan finished bandaging her leg. He wrapped it tightly. There. You will rest. You will drink this. He handed her a cup of water with a white powder dissolved in it. It is for the fever and the pain. She drank it. It was bitter. She did not take her eyes off Dante. She sat there for an hour. The doctor tidied his small, bloody room. He dragged the body of Abel from the front of his porch and into an alley, his face grim. He came back inside, his face pale. He sat in his chair and put his head in his hands. And then Dante's eyes opened. They were not hazy. They were not confused. They shot open, and they were wild. He was a trapped animal. He tried to sit up, a guttural sound of pain ripping from his throat. Jenna was there in an instant. She was off the cot, ignoring her own leg, her hands on his shoulders, holding him down. Dante, it is me. It is Jenna. You are safe. You are safe. His eyes found her. The wildness faded, replaced by a deep, profound confusion. He saw her face, close to his, her hair, wild, her eyes. He saw the clean bandage on her leg. He saw the pistol on the table. He saw the doctor, cowering in the corner. Jenna, he whispered. His voice was a dry rattle. He tried to lift his hand. He could not. Jenna took his hand. It was cold. She brought it to her cheek, holding it there. I am here. I am here. He looked at the seared, bandaged ruin of his chest. He looked at her. The memory came back. The street, the guns, her, standing barefoot in the mud. Her, with the pistol. You fought, he whispered. You fought, she answered. The tears came, hot and fast. She had not let herself cry. Now, she could not stop. You took a bullet, for me. A shadow crossed his face. Pain, but it was not physical. It was a deeper, older wound. I brought them. To you, the town, the bullets. I should have stayed. On the mountain. I failed. Again. He was not talking about the fight. He was talking about Mourning Dove. He had let himself care, and he had brought death. He had brought the fire. Jenna felt his words like a slap, his guilt, his fear. It was the same fear she had lived with, the fear of attachment, the fear that to love was to destroy. She leaned in close, her face inches from his. Her hand tightened on his. No, she said, her voice fierce, a low, shaking command. You listened to me. You did not fail. You did not bring them. They were already there. They were always there. Silas, Hatch, they were the storm. You did not run from it. You taught me how to stand. You taught me how to fight. She let go of his hand. She touched his face. Her fingers, still stained with his blood, traced the hard line of his jaw. I was running, she said, her voice breaking. I was running from a man I was terrified of. A man who sold me. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of you. Jenna, he started, but she put her fingers to his lips. I am not afraid any more, she whispered. I am not afraid of Silas. I am not afraid of Hatch, and I am not afraid of this. I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of loving you. The word hung in the small, silent room. Love. She had said it. She had named the thing that had grown between them in the ice and the blood. Dante's eyes stared into hers. He saw the truth. He saw a woman who was not broken. He saw a woman who was forged. He saw the fear that had lived in his own heart. He saw it die in her. She had been his reflection, the broken one, the survivor. But now, she was more. She was his strength. She had held him to this world. She had fought for him. "Jenna," he said, and his voice was full of a pain that was more than the bullet. It was the pain of a frozen heart breaking. They will come back. For you, the paper, the law." "Let them come," she said. She was not the woman from the snow. She was not the property of Silas. She was the woman from Redemption Creek. "We fought them in the mountains. We fought them in the street. We will fight them again. Together. Together." He closed his eyes. A single, hot tear escaped, tracking through the dirt on his temple. He did not have the strength to lift his arm, but his fingers, the ones she was not holding, found the edge of the blanket that covered him, the one she had wrapped him in. Jenna saw the movement. She understood. She pulled the other cot over, scraping it across the floor. She ignored the doctor's small sound of protest. She laid down beside the table, her hand never leaving Dante's. The battle was over. The dead were in the street. The wounded were in the room. The cost had been terrible. Dante was broken, his life hanging by a thread. Jenna was wounded, a wanted woman. They had lost their peace. They had lost their sanctuary. But as she lay there, her hand in his, the fever from her leg a dull throb, the exhaustion a heavy, sinking weight, Jenna knew what they had won. She had won herself, and he had let himself live. He had let himself be saved. The fear was gone. The deep, cold fear of betrayal that had been her only companion. It was gone. It had been burned away by the heat of the guns, and the greater heat of the love she felt for this man. She would not let that fear, or any fear, ruin this. She would not let it ruin them. She would fight for him, with him, forever. She closed her eyes, her hand in his. She would rest, but she would not sleep. She would guard his life with her own. The world, for a time, became a single, small room. It smelled of lye, carbolic, and dried blood. Days bled into nights, measured only by the small, square window turning from gray to black and back to gray. The town of Redemption Creek existed only as a muffled sound, a far-off hammer, a wagon wheel groaning in the mud. Jenna's fever broke first. It vanished as quickly as it had come, leaving her weak, hollowed out, but clear. Her mind, for the first time in her life, was utterly quiet. The constant, buzzing fear that had been her companion since her marriage was gone. It had been scoured out of her, burned away by the gunshots and the blood. Dante's recovery was a slower, harder thing. The bullet had torn through the thick muscle of his chest, a brutal wound that the doctor's hot iron had only closed, not healed. For 3 days, he drifted in a fevered haze. Jenna did not leave him. She sat on the cot she had dragged beside his table. She spooned broth into his mouth. She bathed his face. She watched him, her hand resting on his, guarding his sleep. Dr. Finnegan became their gruff, unwilling jailer. He would stomp in, his face set in a scowl, carrying a tray. "He's still breathing. Then good. Now you, woman, eat this. You look like a ghost." He would tend to Jenna's leg, his touch surprisingly gentle as he checked Dante's stitches. "He did good work," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "Madness, utter madness." The doctor was their only link to the world. The town, he told them, was in a quiet uproar. The bodies had been buried in the small, muddy plot behind the church. Marshal Bain had filed a report. Self-defense. He'd written, but it was a thin, fragile shield. On the 4th day, the marshal himself came. He was a tall, tired man, his face weathered. He stood at the door, his hat in his hands. He did not look at Dante on the table. He looked at Jenna. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low. "You two, you have caused a stir." Jenna said nothing. Her hand was on the pistol, which sat on the table by her cot. She did not trust this man. She did not trust his badge. "Hatch is gone," the marshal continued, his eyes glancing at the gun. "He rode out of here like the devil was on his tail, his hand wrapped in a bloody rag. But he'll be back. He was screaming about federal warrants, about property." "I am not his property," Jenna said. Her voice was flat. "I know what I saw, ma'am." The marshal sighed. "I saw him draw. I saw Abel fire on a wounded man. I saw you. I saw you defend yourself. And him?" He nodded at Dante. "As far as Redemption Creek is concerned, this is over. We do not like bounty men here, and we like men like Hatch even less." He paused, twisting the brim of his hat. "But this is not Redemption Creek's business anymore. If Hatch comes back with a federal man, with paper, with a bill of sale from your husband, my hands are tied. I cannot fight the United States government, and they will not look kindly on him." He finally looked at Dante. "They will see an Indian who stole a white woman, and they will see a woman who, well, they will not see what I saw." "So, what are you saying?" Jenna asked. "I am saying, Dr. Finnegan tells me you are healing. He says you can travel in a few more days. I strongly suggest you do. I am posting no guard. There is no warrant here. You are free to go." "You want us to run?" Jenna said. It was not a question. "I want you to leave." The marshal corrected. "I want this trouble to be gone from my town. I am a reasonable man. I am giving you a chance. Do not waste it." He put his hat on. "I will not be back. Good day, ma'am. Doctor." He left. The door closed. The silence he left behind was heavy. Jenna looked at Dante. He had been awake. He had heard it all. His dark eyes were open, watching her. "He wants us to run," she said again. "He wants us to live." Dante's voice was a dry rasp. He pushed himself up onto one elbow. The movement cost him. His face went pale, and sweat popped on his forehead. Jenna was at his side, pushing him gently back down. "Do not move. You will tear the wound." He grabbed her wrist. His grip was weak, but his eyes were fierce. "He is right. The paper, the law. It is their world. They will not stop." "We fought them," Jenna said. "We fought men," Dante said, breathing hard. "You cannot fight paper. You cannot shoot a warrant." He looked at her, and his old fear was there. The fear she had heard in his voice when he spoke of his wife. The fear of a world that could burn you with a piece of paper. I have put you in more danger. I took you from the mountain and I brought you here. I brought you to them. I cannot protect you from this." Jenna looked at the man on the table, the man who had carried her through a blizzard, the man who had taken a bullet for her, the man who had sewn her leg with his own hands. He was a warrior. He was a hunter. He was the strongest man she had ever known. And he was terrified, not of death, but of this, of her past, of the world that Silas represented. She sat on the edge of the table. She laid her hand on his chest. Next to the heavy, thick bandage, she could feel the faint, steady beat of his heart. "Silas," she said, the name feeling strange in her mouth, like a word from a foreign language. He is not a man. He is a ghost. He is a story I used to believe. He sold me. He did that. And he set me free. He sent me to you." She looked at her own hands. They were not the soft hands of a wife. They were scarred, chapped. "I am not that woman anymore. I am not his. I am not property. I am the woman who killed Eli. I am the woman who shot Abel. I am the woman who stood in the street. That is who I am." She leaned in, her face close to his. "You did not fail me. You showed me who I was, and I will not run. Not from them, not from paper." "Jenna," he whispered, his heart in his eyes. "They will put you in a prison, or worse. And me, they will hang me. Then they will have to find us, she said. A slow, cold smile touched her lips. You know the mountains. You have a hidden place. You have other places? Do you not places they cannot find, places paper cannot go? He stared at her strength, at this fire that he had only glimpsed on the mountain. She was not asking him to protect her. She was asking him to be her partner. He nodded, slowly. There are other places, far from here, far from everything. A valley, to the west, where the streams are, where the mountains are like a wall. It is a hard place. Good, Jenna said. We like hard places. 5 days later, they left. Dr. Finnegan gave them his grudging blessing, along with a bag of bandages, a bottle of laudanum, and a warning. Your leg will scar, woman, but it will hold. His will be a long time healing. Do not let him hunt. Do not let him be a fool. I will not, Jenna promised. Good, now get out. I'm tired of looking at you. Marshal Bain was waiting for them in the alley behind the office. It was just before dawn. The town was asleep. He had 2 horses. One was a steady-looking mare. The other was a mean, rangy gelding. These were left behind, the marshal said, not meeting their eyes. The town, we decided they'll cover the cost of the burials. And your doctor's bill. This one, he pointed to the mare, is for you, ma'am. Dante looked at the other horse. This was Hatch's horse. He left it in a hurry, the marshal said. Seems fitting. You take it, and you ride west. Do not ride north, back to your mountains. They will look for you there. Ride west, and do not stop until you are in a new territory. Do you understand? We understand, Jenna said. She put her hand out. The marshal looked at it, surprised. He took it. Her grip was firm. Thank you. Do not thank me, he said, pulling his hand back. Just go, and God help you. Dante was weak. It took all his strength to pull himself into the saddle. Jenna mounted the mare. Her leg ached. The stretch painful. They were a ruined pair. A man with a hole in his chest, and a woman with a ruined leg. They rode out of Redemption Creek. They did not look back. The sun was just beginning to touch the eastern peaks as they pointed their horses west, toward the unknown. They rode for weeks. They moved slowly, Dante setting a pace that his body could endure. Jenna hunted. She used the rifle Dante had taken from Abel's dead hands. She was a good shot. Her eye was clear. She set snares, as he had taught her. She made their camp. She tended his wound. She was the strong one. She was the provider. He was the patient. And as they rode, they talked. He told her of his people. He told her stories of the stars, of the earth. He taught her the names of the plants. He taught her his language, a few words at a time. And she told him of her life, of the quiet, gray house she had grown up in, of her hopes, of her fears. She laid her past out, piece by piece, and let the western wind blow the dust off it. Dante's wound healed. The seared flesh became a thick, ropey scar, a permanent, puckered mark of the battle they had shared. Jenna's leg healed, leaving a long, jagged scar on her calf, a reminder of her first fight. They were no longer the people who had met in the snow. They were new, marked, changed. They found it, the valley. It was just as he had said. A high, green meadow, ringed by granite mountains that were a fortress against the world. A clear, fast stream cut through it. The air was clean. It was a place where no one would ever look. They began to build. They cut timber. They stacked stone. Dante's strength returned. He moved with his old, fluid grace, but he was changed. The coldness, the ice in his heart, it was gone. He would watch her, a small, quiet smile on his face. Their cabin was small, like his first one, but it was not a refuge. It was not a place to hide. It was a home. One evening, as the spring sun set They sat on a log outside their unfinished home. The air was warm. The snow was gone from all but the highest peaks. Jenna touched the scar on her leg. It was a part of her now. Dante, sitting beside her, touched the scar on his chest. "It is a strange mark," he said, his fingers tracing the puckered flesh. "We match," Jenna said. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He did not stiffen. He did not pull away. He put his arm around her. It felt right. It felt as solid as the mountains around them. The future was not certain. They knew that. The world was still out there. Hatch, Silas, the paper, they could still come. The past was not dead. It was just quiet. But Jenna was not afraid. She had faced her past. She had accepted it. She had killed for this life. She had bled for it. And she would not let it go. She looked at the man beside her. He was not just her savior. He was not just her ally. He was her home. She had been running from a ghost, and she had run straight into a new life. It was a hard life. It would be a hard life, but it was theirs, and they would build it, together. The valley was a secret, whispered by the mountains to the sky. The granite peaks rose on all sides, a fortress wall that kept the world at bay. Down here, the air was warm, sweet with the smell of high meadow grass and the sharp, clean scent of pine. The stream that cut through the meadow was not a muddy, troubled thing like Redemption Creek, but a fast, clear artery of melted snow, cold and full of life. Summer had settled over them, a deep, healing green. The cabin was finished. It stood near the tree line, its back against a rise, its face to the morning sun. It was small, sturdy, and built with their own 4 hands. The logs were notched with a precision Dante had taught Jenna. The stone hearth was built from rocks she had hauled from the stream bed, her newly healed leg protesting at first, then growing stronger with every load. This life was a rhythm. A quiet song played between them. They woke with the light. Dante would hunt or fish. Jenna would tend the small, stubborn garden she had carved from the earth. Or she would take the rifle and hunt as well. She had become a good shot, patient and steady. She had a knack for it, a stillness that Dante had recognized in her from the first. One afternoon, she was tracking a buck, moving through the aspens at the north end of the valley. She was alone, at peace. The woods were quiet. She stopped, listening, and she heard it. A sound that did not belong, a man's voice shouting. The old Jenna would have frozen. The old Jenna would have felt the ice in her stomach, the panic that choked her. The new Jenna simply dropped into a crouch. She was invisible in an instant. She raised the rifle. Her breathing was slow. Even, her eyes scanned the distance. She was not prey. She was a hunter. She was a guardian. She waited. The voice came again. It was distant, echoing strangely. It was not Hatch. It was not Silas. She knew those voices. This was something else. She moved, not away, but toward the sound, a shadow moving between the trees. She found him, a prospector. His mule had fallen, its leg broken in a rock slide. He was a small, old man with a panicked white beard, and he was cursing at the animal, tears of frustration in his eyes. He had not seen her. Jenna watched him for a long, silent minute. He was just a man, a piece of the outside world, broken and lost. He was no threat. She could have turned. She could have vanished, leaving him to his fate. It was the law of the mountains. She stepped out. "You need help." The man yelped, spinning, fumbling for a pistol. He saw her, a woman, dressed in buckskin trousers and a simple linen shirt, a rifle in her hands. Her dark hair was tied back. Her face was calm. He saw the long, pale scar that ran down her calf. My mule?" he stammered. Jenna looked at the animal. Its leg was a ruin. "She is finished," she said, her voice quiet. She raised her rifle. "No, wait," the old man cried. Jenna did not wait. The shot was clean, precise. The animal was out of its misery. The old man stared, his mouth open. "You are in the High Valley." Jenna said, "You are lost. Where are you bound?" "I was looking for the sweet water, for gold. I am lost." Jenna nodded. She unslung her pack. She gave him a strip of dried venison and a small pouch of water. "The sweet water is 2 days east, over that pass." She pointed. "But you cannot go back up. You must go down. Follow this stream. It will take you to the wide river. Follow the river south. It will lead you to the settlements. It will take a week." "But my supplies, "Your supplies are gone," Jenna said, not unkindly. "This is food. It will last you 2 days. You will have to walk fast." He stared at her rifle. Who are you?" "I am the woman who saved you from starving." She said, "Now go. This valley, it is not for you." He took the food. He looked at the dead mule. He looked at her. He nodded, scrambled to his feet, and began to half run, half stumble, down the stream. Jenna watched him until he was gone. She turned and walked back toward her home. She felt nothing, not fear, not pity, just a calm certainty. She had handled it. The world had knocked, and she had answered the door. When she got back to the cabin, Dante was there. He was sitting by the door, mending a fishing net. He looked up. He did not ask where she had been. He did not ask about the shot he must have heard. He knew. He could read the story in the way she walked, in the set of her shoulders. "A man," she said, sitting beside him. "Yes," he said. "He was lost. I sent him away." "Yes." She sat with him, their shoulders touching. The silence between them was as comfortable as the wool blankets on their bed. "I was not afraid," she said, the words a small discovery. "I know," he said. He put down the net. He looked at her. His eyes, which had been so full of old, cold grief when she first saw them, were now clear. They were warm. You are the strongest person I have ever known." Jenna looked at his hands, strong, calloused, gentle, the hands that had sewed her leg, that had held her only because you showed me how. He shook his head. "No, I did not show you. I saw it. It was always there. The man, your husband, he did not see. He was blind." The name husband did not sting. Silas. He was a ghost, a thin, pale memory from another life. He was the man who had, in his weakness and betrayal, given her this. She could almost find it in her heart to pity him. He was trapped in his world of paper and lies. And she was free. That night, a storm came. Not a blizzard, a warm, summer storm. The thunder rolled between the peaks, a sound like giants bowling. The rain lashed the new roof of their cabin. They lay in the bed they had built together. It was wide and soft with furs. Jenna lay, listening to the rain. She remembered the first storm, the blizzard, the hidden cabin. She remembered the feeling of him lifting her, of him giving her his bed. She turned to him. In the dark, she could just see the outline of his face, the strong line of his nose and chin. The scar on his chest was a pale shadow against his skin. She reached out and touched it. Her fingers traced the rough, puckered flesh. Does it still hurt?" Dante took her hand. He held it against the scar. "No, it is a part of me." He took her hand and he kissed her fingers. Then he moved, his hand finding the long scar on her calf. His touch was light, a ghost of a touch. "And this, it is a part of you." "We match," she whispered. "We match," he said. His voice was low, and it was full of a feeling that was more than just love. It was respect. It was peace. He pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder, on the solid, warm strength of him. He was no longer the ice. He was the earth. He was her home. The fear of betrayal, the fear of loving, it was gone. It had died in Redemption Creek. What was left was this quiet, this strength, this absolute, unshakable knowledge that this man would not lie. He would not fail her, and she would not fail him. The storm raged outside. It could not touch them. They built their life. The seasons turned. The green of summer gave way to the gold of autumn. The first snows came, dusting the high peaks. But this time, the snow was not an enemy. It was just a blanket. It meant trapping. It meant mending hides by the fire. It meant long nights, side by side, in the warm, safe cabin. Jenna had faced her past. She had accepted the pain. She had accepted the scars. She had learned that a heart, even one that had been sold and shattered, could heal. It could heal, and it could grow stronger in the broken places. Dante had faced he had let another person into his frozen heart. He had learned that to love was a risk. It was the only risk. But he had also learned that to not love was a different kind of death. Jenna had not been his wife. Mourning dove. She was not a ghost to be protected. She was a warrior, to be stood beside. She had not been turned to ash. She had been the fire, and she had brought him back to life. Their love was not a soft, easy thing. It was not the lie of smiles and promises. It was a love born of ice and blood, of shared pain and mutual respect. It was as strong as the mountains that sheltered them. It was as real as the scars they both carried. They were two broken people, two survivors, and in finding each other, they had become whole. They had found their sanctuary, not a place on a map, but a place in each other. They were free, they were loved, and they were, finally, at peace. Thank you for listening to our story. We invite you to comment below with where you are listening from so we can all connect and share our thoughts. And please subscribe to our channel Wild West Tales, like the video, and support us further by pressing the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.